Welcome everybody to another episode of Jericho's NBA Daily Fantasy Breakdown. We've only got 4 games on the slate today, so it's going to be a pretty short and sweet breakdown of everything. Real quick, my website, NBA Dailyfantasypicks.com. I provide lineups, and I'm also working on adding other value. I should start having my top plays by position posted every day. I post tournament lineups, and I post these videos as well. To all my subscribers, been a little rough lately. Shit happens. Was 26 of 30 in December and have slowed down and cooled off quite a bit here in January. But I want you guys to use me for more than just lineups. I hope you guys are asking questions, tweeting me, direct messaging me, trying to build your own tournament lineups. That's the real fun. I mean, there's not a whole lot of fun involved if you're just using somebody else's lineup. For those of you that do that and you're okay with it, things will pick up. We'll start winning a lot more here very soon. I'm going to go by position every single position. I'm not going to go by game. I think this might be a little easier for everyone, and I have all my detailed notes in front of me on every individual player that was worth breaking down. So let's start with the point guard position. Norris Cole going against Minnesota. If Tyreke Evans is out, he should see 30 minutes. And the Timberwolves are not great versus point guards. And in 2 games without Tyreke, he averages 28 fantasy points per game. If you put that at his 4,100 price, that's 7 times value. So if Tyreke is indeed out, Norris Cole should be a guy that you really consider in cash and definitely in GPP. Looks like Emmanuel Mudiay. Jameer Nelson's MRI came back clean, but they're still unsure if he's going to play. The Thunder at the very bottom of the league versus point guards in 36 minutes. Without Nelson is how much Mudiay played last game. So, Emmanuel Mudiay, if Jameer Nelson does not play, is a definite option. Tyler Johnson is one of my locks of the night. Probably the only one I'm going to give away. The other ones might be a little obvious based on the way I talk about them. But Udra and Dragic are confirmed out. And Tyler Johnson at 4,500 is still very affordable. Milwaukee's in the middle of the pack against point guards. And last game, he played 38 minutes. So, Tyler Johnson, really solid option. George Hill is another great play at point guard, but obviously he has to play. He's questionable due to personal reasons. I did see that Coach Vogel said that he's hopeful to have him back in this game. And Phoenix gives up 52 fantasy points per game to point guards. So, George Hill at 5,800, probably going to see 30 minutes or so, maybe even more, 35-ish. How do you fade that? I mean, he's almost guaranteed to get 30 fantasy points at 5,800. Drew Holiday, his usage goes from 25 to 28 if Tyreke is out, so he's a solid option. If Tyreke Evans sits, I don't like him as much if Tyreke plays. Brandon Knight, I don't have a whole lot of history with him against Indiana, but George Hill is not that great of a defender. Not anymore, at least. He used to be. 2 years ago, he torched Phoenix for 86 fantasy points in 2 games. 43 fantasy points a game. However, since Bledsoe injured himself for the rest of the season, Brandon Knight only gets 28 fantasy points per game, and I believe that's in a 10-game span. 6,500. He's an okay play. Probably going to go in another direction, though. Tyreke Evans, not one of my favorite plays, but he is 2 fantasy points better at home, and he averages 33 fantasy points per game against Minnesota over the last 2 seasons. So, 7,300, that's almost value. He's an okay option, but again, probably going to go a different route. I do like him in tournaments if he plays, because a lot of people will be off of him. Russell Westbrook averages 49 FanDuel points per game versus Denver this season. He's priced down a little bit at 10.5. He's one of my favorite plays of the night, and I think he's somebody that you should definitely consider on a 4-game slate. Andre Roberson, we're moving on to shooting guard now. He's a tournament-only play for me, but he averages 20 fantasy points per game against Denver this season, and he's been trending upwards the last 3 games or so. So he's definitely a guy that you want to look at. Dion Waiters has reached value in 4 straight games. I really like him. He's a streaky guy. And since he's on and this could potentially be a blowout, I think that Dion Waiters is a fine option. Devin Booker, I don't love him. He's only getting 0.6 of a fantasy point per minute. And he's only at about 27 minutes right now. Do the math on that. That's, what, 15 fantasy points? And his price is up a little bit to 4K. He's not a horrible option. I think he's better in a tournament because he could go off. But I really don't like him in cash games. Not against Indy, but in a tournament facing off against Ellis. I could see him getting 30 fantasy points. Zach LaVine, trending upward. I think he'll be a popular play tonight at shooting guard, which I kind of disagree with. The Pelicans are actually pretty good versus shooting guards. Eric Gordon's a nice defender. And although he gets almost a fantasy point per minute, he's right around 23 minutes. And if he's not shooting the ball well, he could easily throw up a 5 to 10 fantasy point game. That's just not something that I can risk, although I did it with Wayne Ellington last night, and it fucked me in the ass. Gary Harris, he's kind of expensive at $4,400 for his production. He's averaged 17 fantasy points per game versus OKC this year. And that's not horrible for $4,400, but I think I'm going to go a different direction at shooting guard. Gerald Green, my favorite tournament option of the night, coming off of some knee tendonitis, he's a little risky. He's a lot risky. He's been awful the last couple games, but he could really be nice with the backcourt injuries of Dragic and Udrih. He is a guy that you have to consider. Monte Ellis, one of my favorite plays of the night. He got 30 fantasy points last time out against Denver, against Phoenix. And Phoenix is just, they're bad versus backcourts. It's that simple. If George Hill is out, I am definitely playing Monte Ellis. If George Hill is in, I still like Monte Ellis, and I'm probably still going to roster him. Will Barton trending upward. I don't trust him in cash yet, but you can play him in a tournament. Dwayne Wade, his usage goes up 3 percentage points when Dragic is out, and he's playing Milwaukee. They give up a lot of fantasy points, period, and this is a very big pace-up game for Miami. So I really like the Dwayne Wade play at shooting guard a lot more than all the risky plays that are involved at that position. If you look at small forward, I'm going to start with PJ Tucker. He hasn't scored less than 20 fantasy points in 5 straight games, but he's trending downward in a really big way. He is not shooting well at all. His field goal percentage has dropped immensely, and it looks like they're starting to go in a different direction. TJ Warren, Mirza Teletovic. So I don't have a whole lot of trust in Tucker, but he is an okay play. Shabazz Muhammad relies on scoring. My projections like him somewhat. The minutes have really been earned according to their coach, and he's raved about Shabazz and his play recently. He's not bad for minimum salary, but I just don't think that that's a guy that I can take a chance on in cash. He's more of a GPP option. Luol Deng, very consistent, especially in close games, which I foresee this one being. He averages 22 fantasy points per game against Milwaukee. That's last season. I think he's playing pretty well. He's getting a lot of minutes. And with the backcourt difficulties, he should see even more of an uptick in usage. So look for Luol Deng to have a pretty nice game and be solid at his price tag at $4,300. CJ Miles, a week ago against Phoenix, he put up 34 FanDuel points. And he could definitely see an uptick if Hill is out. And even if Mahinmi is out, he'll see a little more of an uptick. I like Miles in these kind of fast-paced games against bad backcourts. Mostly because if it's a blowout, he's going to get a lot of extra garbage time points. He plays in blowouts. He likes to shoot the 3. And in these kind of catch-and-shoot games, that's really where he thrives. He's been struggling a little bit as of late, and people got screwed by him, so he'll be low-owned. But I think CJ Miles is definitely a fine option. Andrew Wiggins, you could do worse. He's an okay option. He should get you 30 fantasy points at $6,700. I just like him to have a little bit more upside and a little more consistency. But as of late, he's been great. I could see playing him against New Orleans. I'm okay with that. Gallinari is an okay option. The matchup is not good at all, but he is on fire. He got in foul trouble last game, and the game before, I believe, was a blowout. Outside of that, this guy has been taking over. I saw an interview with him where he said he has to be more aggressive, and that coach has just kind of given him the reins and let him take over the offense. So Gallinari, definitely a guy that you want to take a look at. I don't think I'm going to go that route, but it's still too early for me to tell. Kevin Durant in 2 games versus Denver averages 40 fantasy points. Westbrook's the better play, but I'm completely okay if you can fit in both of these guys to stack them tonight. I think the game stays close enough, long enough to where they get you 80-plus fantasy points combined, and they could possibly get you 90 to 100. So on small slates, it's a really viable strategy to stack Durant and Westbrook. Miles Turner, if Mahinmi is indeed going to sit out again, makes for an interesting option, and it's a possible blowout, which gives him more minutes. This kid is really intelligent. I watched an interview and I read some notes on what he was saying about him needing to take more of a responsibility on the glass. Vogel's been raving about him. I think Miles Turner, even at 4K, if Mahinmi sits out, is probably a guy that I'm going to look at in cash. It's a little bit risky. A lot of guys won't be on him, but I think he gets more minutes than Jordan Hill and Lavoy Allen again. I could definitely see that. He played so well last game, and they're really happy to have him back from his injury. Darrell Arthur, he's only an option if he starts, in my opinion, which is very unlikely. John Henson, probably not the spot I want to use Henson in. Miami's great against power forwards, and he could see very limited minutes in this game. Markieff Morris has been really solid the last 3 games. They're showing him off so they can trade him. But the Pacers are really great against power forwards. And you never know with Hornacek when he's going to bench Morris and just decide to take him off the shelf. So I'm a little concerned about rostering Markieff here. I'm probably not going to do it. Jabari Parker, just not a great matchup. I'm not a fan of targeting power forwards against Miami. I'm probably not going to do it here, especially since his price has risen to $5,200. Kenneth Faried, not enough minutes to validate his salary. Just can't do it. Not at $6,100. He needs to be in the 5K range. Serge Ibaka's been on fire the last couple games, and he's averaging 36 fantasy points per game versus Denver this season. And over the last 2 seasons, he's murdered Faried. In 6 games, Ibaka has 33 fantasy points per game against Kenneth Faried. So Ibaka, one of my favorite options at power forward. Chris Bosh, he averaged 30 fantasy points a game against Milwaukee last season. Milwaukee's in the bottom of the league against power forwards. He's an okay option. He's been trending downward the last couple games. He's okay. I think he's going to be too high owned for my liking, and I don't see him going for 40 or 50. So I'm okay with fading him. But if he fits and you have that money to spend, he's an okay option. Anthony Davis not paying off his price tag at $10,200. I'm not going to go there. Nikola Pekovic not seeing any minutes. We're on the center now, by the way. Jordan Hill, if Mahinmi's out, he's a good GPP play, but I'm not going to touch him in cash. Tyson Chandler, $3,900. He's going to get you 16 fantasy points. That's not enough for me. Nikola Jokic, trending upward in a big way. If Mahinmi is out, I love Jokic. He's been playing great, and Jordan Hill is a horrible defender. Jokic has a really nice skill set for a big man. I love the way he passes. He's been seeing more minutes lately. Steven Adams, for whatever reason, has had 2 piss-poor outings versus Denver. He's not a good option for me. Gorgie Jing, I don't love him. He's okay, but there's a lot better options. Maybe in a GPP. Enes Kanter is actually a really nice option here. He averages 26 fantasy points per game versus Denver this season. His price is depressed down to $4,300. I think you can throw Kanter comfortably in GPPs. I probably won't use him in cash. Jan Mahinmi, if he's healthy and he plays, he's a nice cash option. Karl Anthony Towns, his minutes are too volatile. Can't play him. Greg Monroe, not against Whiteside. No way. And Hassan Whiteside, the Bucks give up 50 FanDuel points per game to centers. Whiteside's on fire, seen over 33 minutes in his last 2 games. I don't see how you fade Whiteside here. Should be 80% owned. But I could easily see myself going the Jokic route if Mahinmi is indeed out. So that's pretty much it. Short, sweet, to the point. I hope you guys enjoyed it. The website, again, is NBA Dailyfantasypicks.com. My name is Jericho. You can follow me on Twitter at InJericho's Words. And as always, let's cash, bitches.